Chapter 76. There were 6 basic ways to use the spear, and they were called the 6-word spear formula: collapse, push, press, cover, flick, and stab. Only by mastering these 6 basic methods would one be able to practice more profound spear arts. Lu Ming immediately picked up Zhu Bing's long spear in the Temple of Paragon and began to cultivate. Swoosh! The spear turned into a flash and stabbed forward. With a sweep, the spear turned into the shadow of the moon and swept out. Just like that, Lu Ming practiced the 6-word foundation spear formula again and again. Azure Dragon Courtyard. In a very spacious and luxurious courtyard, Yarrow Tianyu sat in the living room with a few people reporting to him. 2 of them were the ones who had gone to summon Lu Ming. Senior brother Yarrow, that Lu Ming is too arrogant. He doesn't take senior brother Yarrow seriously at all. The red-robed young man said, Lu Ming, do you really think you're a big shot? How dare you ignore me? I'll make you regret it. Yarrow Tianyu's eyes were cold. Senior brother Yarrow, this Lu Ming is a disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. If he keeps hiding in the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, it won't be easy to deal with him. Another young man frowned. Then do you have any ideas? Yarrow Tianyu asked. At this moment, a smarter young man rolled his eyes and said, Senior brother Yarrow, I have an idea that can force Lu Ming out and make him attack first. Then, we can take down Lu Ming legitimately. Then, he told Yarrow Tianyu his plan. Good, ha ha ha, let's do that. Yarrow Tianyu laughed after hearing it. In the Temple of Paragon, Lu Ming had been practicing the 6-word spear formula. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. My spear is still not stable enough. I didn't have any foundation in spear techniques before, so it took me too long to cultivate. Lu Ming sighed. Also, although this spear is a high-grade level 2 spiritual weapon, the body of the spear is still not soft enough. Looks like I'll have to buy a new spear in the future. Lu Ming thought as he looked at the spear in his hand. A long spear was mainly divided into a spearhead and a spear shaft. However, the most important thing was still the spear shaft. The spear shaft needed both hardness and softness. It had to be hard and heavy, but also had to have a certain degree of softness and elasticity. This was the only way to display the true power of the spear art. Zhu Bing's long spear was called the fire-patterned spear. The spear shaft was made from fire-patterned iron and the spear tip was made from black iron essence. It was considered pretty good as a high-grade spirit weapon, but Lu Ming was not satisfied. Although the fire-patterned iron had a certain degree of elasticity, it was not enough. At this moment, Lu Ming's expression changed. He discovered that there was a clamor coming from outside. With a thought, Lu Ming left the Temple of Paragon, opened the door and walked out. In the courtyard, a group of people walked in. Hua Kai was among them, but at this time, his face was bruised and swollen. He was carrying a person in with the others. Be careful, you guys be careful, Hua Kai shouted. Lu Ming frowned slightly. He walked forward and asked, Hua Kai, what's going on? Also, who injured you? Lu Ming, you're back. Seeing Lu Ming, Hua Kai was slightly stunned. Then, he averted his gaze and said, I'm fine. I just accidentally fell while doing a mission. You fell? Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then, he looked at the person being carried in by the crowd. With one look, his eyes suddenly narrowed. This person was none other than Pang Shi. At this moment, Pang Shi's face was pale and his eyes were tightly shut. He had already fainted. What happened? Lu Ming's face darkened. There was a moment of silence. No one spoke. Lu Ming's face darkened as he searched Pang Shi's body. The more he searched, the more gloomy Lu Ming's face became. Both of his legs were broken into several pieces. Both of his arms were broken, and 3 of his ribs were broken. More seriously, his internal organs were also damaged. This was obviously caused by a heavy blow. What a ruthless method. With such serious injuries, if he was not careful, it would affect his future martial arts path. In more serious cases, he might even be crippled. Tell me, what happened? Lu Ming's voice was extremely cold. Lu Ming, it's really nothing. It's all our fault. Hua Kai gritted his teeth and said, How did you do it? Lu Ming continued to ask, Huakai, don't hide it. If you don't say it, I will. At this moment, another young man shouted. This young man was called Liu Qi. In fact, Lu Ming had an impression of these young men. They were all new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard this year. Liu Qi, you can't say it. Huakai shouted. Huakai, shut up. Lu Ming shouted. Then, he looked at Liu Qi and said, say it. Liu Qi gritted his teeth and said, Senior brother Lu Ming, Pang Shi was beaten up by someone from the Star Moon Alliance. Star Moon Alliance. Lu Ming frowned. He had never heard of this Star Moon Alliance. Senior brother Lu Ming, the Star Moon Alliance is a force formed by some disciples of the Everdragon Courtyard. They built a Star Moon Pavilion in the trading point to buy materials and items from disciples. The price is slightly higher than exchanging them directly with contribution points. Liu Qi explained. Lu Ming nodded. The trading point was located in the central area of the 4 courtyards. It was the place where disciples of the 4 courtyards traded. Although it was convenient to exchange at the contribution hall, the exchange price was relatively lower. Therefore, many disciples who went out to complete missions and obtained materials for refining elixirs or weapons would choose to trade at the exchange point. It was more cost-effective that way. Liu Qi continued, during this period of time, Pang Shi went out with us to do missions. We also obtained some materials and brought them to the Star Moon Pavilion to sell. Who knew that the Star Moon Pavilion was despicable and only gave us 1 silver tael for 1,000 silver taels. Pang Shi was furious and argued with them. Then, he was beaten up like this. Even we were beaten up. Yes, the most despicable thing is that they only targeted our Vermilion Bird Courtyard. The other courtyards were all fair trade. Another young man roared. I see. They only targeted the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming muttered. At this moment, he had calmed down. However, the cold light in his eyes was incomparably cold. When the other young men looked at him, they couldn't help but shiver. Huakai, quickly invite the alchemist from the sect. No matter how much money I have to spend, I have to save Pang Shi. Lu Ming said coldly. I have already asked someone to invite them. They will be here soon. Huakai said. That's good. I will leave Pang Shi in your care for now. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Ming turned and walked out. Lu Ming, you can't. The Star Moon Pavilion is filled with experts. You are not their match. You will be courting death if you go, Huakai shouted. If I don't go, I won't be at ease. Lu Ming only left this sentence and strode away. Although Lu Ming and Pang Shi had only known each other for a few months, Pang Shi's character was straightforward and honest. This hunter's son had already received Lu Ming's approval. Lu Ming treated him as a friend and even a brother. Now that Pang Shi was beaten up like this, it was impossible for him to ignore it. Although he felt that this matter was very strange and could be a trap. But, so what? There were things that a man should do and not do. Chapter 77. Looking at Lu Ming's departing figure, Huakai's face flashed with anxiety as he thought to himself, no, if Lu Ming goes like this, he will definitely be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, I heard that the backer of the Star Moon Pavilion is the genius of the bronze list, Yarou Tianyu. No matter how strong Lu Ming is, he won't be a match for him. I'm going to look for Feng Wu and get her to look for Elder Mulins. Otherwise, Lu Ming will be in danger. Immediately, Huakai gave a few instructions to the others before hurriedly heading outside. Speaking of the Star Moon Pavilion, there was probably no one in the entire trading area who didn't know of it. This was because the backer of the Star Moon Pavilion was the genius on the bronze list, Yarou Tianyu. Therefore, the strength of the Star Moon Pavilion was one of the top in the entire trading area. This was because the silver rank disciples would not interfere in such an ordinary trading area. They had a higher level place. The Star Moon Pavilion was a 3-story building that occupied an extremely large area. Liu Wei was a small leader of the Star Moon Pavilion. He had joined the Star Moon Pavilion for more than a year. As he was quick-witted, good at management, and ruthless, he had become a small leader in just over a year. At this moment, in front of the entrance of the Star Moon Pavilion, he was lazily sitting on an armchair, looking ahead. This was because there were still some people surrounding the front of the Star Moon Pavilion. These people were all new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. These people were the same as Pangshu and the rest. They had all been scammed by the Star Moon Pavilion. At this moment, they were all glaring at Liu Wei, but they did not dare to say anything. This was because they had just seen one of the disciples being beaten to a miserable state by the Star Moon Alliance. He was almost beaten to death. Liu Wei held a cup of tea and slowly drank it. Looking at the newcomers below who were angry but did not dare to say anything, he felt a wave of satisfaction in his heart. Damn it, my materials are worth 3,000 taels of silver, but they only gave me 3 taels of silver. What's the difference between this and robbery? The disciples clenched their fists and roared in their hearts. What are you looking at? Are you asking for a beating? Hurry up and scram. Liu Wei berated condescendingly. You. Return the materials to me and I'll leave. Finally, a thin youth around 15 years old could not help but call out. Oh my, you dare to ask for the materials back? Are you dreaming? Get this straight, we've already bought your materials and given you the money. This is a fair trade, do you understand? Before Liu Wei could say anything, a big-mouthed minion jumped out from beside him and shouted loudly. After he finished scolding, he secretly glanced at Liu Wei. Seeing Liu Wei secretly nodding, he was overjoyed. It seemed that Liu Wei was very satisfied with his performance. Below, the skinny youth's face was flushed red. He clenched his fists and said, Fair? My materials are worth more than 5,000 taels of silver, but you are only giving me 5 taels of silver. I risked my life to get them. You can't do this to me. Oh my, you still dare to talk back? I think your bones must be itching. Do you want to be like that big guy from before and have all of your bones broken? That guy was personally dealt with by our alliance master. Now, I'll do the same. The big-mouthed minion sneered and walked down step by step. The skinny young man gritted his teeth and decided to throw caution to the wind. He shouted, What you're doing is against the rules of the sect. I'm going to the law enforcement hall to complain about you. Oh, you want to lodge a complaint against us in the law enforcement hall? I think your bones are really itching. The big-mouthed minion's face was gloomy as he walked towards the skinny youth step by step. The skinny youth's face was pale with fright. Around them, the other new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard gritted their teeth, but none of them dared to say a word. Further away, many disciples of the other courtyards were watching the show with great interest. It was as if they were watching a good show. Don't come over. The skinny youth roared and struck out with his palm. However, he was only at the 9th level of the martial warrior realm, while the big-mouthed minion was an old disciple who had reached the 3rd level of the martial master realm. He was not a match for him at all. With one move, the skinny youth was hit until he vomited blood and retreated again and again. However, the big-mouthed minion quickly caught up and grabbed the skinny youth's neck. You still dare to attack? You're looking for a beating. The big-mouthed minion coldly shouted. Then, he raised his other hand high and suddenly slapped the skinny youth's face. He's going to be miserable. The new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard sighed. They couldn't bear to watch and closed their eyes. However, the slap that they imagined did not sound and the scene fell into silence. They curiously opened their eyes and saw that the big-mouthed minion's arm was held by someone. It was a youth of about 15 years old. He was about the same age as them, but he was wearing a blue robe and had a slender figure. Just by standing there, he gave off a feeling of being as immovable as a mountain. The skinny youth was already prepared to be beaten up, but he suddenly found that the big-mouthed minion's arm was held by someone. He turned his head around and saw a delicate and pretty face. However, that face was incomparably cold. Senior brother Lu Ming. The skinny youth couldn't help but say such a sentence in his heart. Who are you? You dare to block me? Are you courting death? The big-mouthed minion shouted. Me? I'm just a new disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming said indifferently. A new disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard? Hearing that Lu Ming was just a new disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, the big-mouthed minion's courage was boosted and he roared, A mere new disciple dares to grab my hand? Let go and then kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistake. Perhaps I can spare you. Is that so? The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. Why are trash like you still staying here? As soon as his voice fell, Lu Ming's palm suddenly exerted force. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Then, the big-mouthed minion's shrill scream was heard. My hand. My hand is broken. Let go of my hand. The big-mouthed minion screamed and the arm that was holding the skinny youth loosened. He desperately tried to pry Lu Ming's arm away. Let go of you. Sure. Lu Ming sneered. Then, he raised one of his arms high and slapped it down hard. Slap. It was an extremely loud slap in the face. In the sound of the slap, the big-mouthed youth's body was like a broken garbage bag being swept up by the wind. He flew out close to the ground with a whoosh. Everyone could see that in the process of flying out, teeth mixed with blood were spat out from his mouth. The big-mouthed youth's face directly collapsed and deformed. Bang! The big-mouthed minion fell heavily on the wall next to the stairs. He screamed and fainted. Cool. Cool. The new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard all roared in their hearts. This slap was too cool. It was too satisfying. The big-mouthed minion was arrogant and despotic just a moment ago, but now he was beaten into such a miserable state. It was too satisfying. It was simply too satisfying. They wished they could transform into Lu Ming and ruthlessly slap the big-mouthed youth a few times. Chapter 78. Where did this bastard come from? Did you eat a leopard's guts? How dare you hit someone from the Star Moon League? If I don't cripple you today, I will change my surname to yours. A dark-skinned young man walked out. His body was majestic and his muscles bulged like black iron. His eyes were cold as he stared at Lu Ming with murderous intent. Bang! He suddenly jumped up from the top of the stairs. While he was in the air, his body flashed with a bloody light and a huge black bear appeared. There were 2 bloody chakras on the black bear's body. The cultivation of the 4th-level martial master and the eruption of the black bear's bloodline made the burly young man's aura even stronger. He was like a mountain that pressed down on Lu Ming. This burly young man was several times stronger than the blabbermouth young man. Above, Liu Wei and the others sneered. They believed that the burly young man would definitely make Lu Ming suffer a great loss. How strong could a new disciple be? But in the next moment, the smile on their faces froze. Slap. It was still a loud slap. Then, the crowd saw the imposing young man fly back at a speed even faster than when he had pounced. His face was deformed and blood mixed with teeth flew everywhere. His body fell heavily on the ground and he screamed. He followed in the footsteps of the blabbermouth young man and fainted. Hiss, Liu Wei and the others from the Star Moon League couldn't help but gasp. At this moment, even if they were arrogant, they could tell that Lu Ming was an expert. But when did the Vermilion Bird Courtyard have such a powerful new disciple? Could it be? Liu Wei's face changed. He slowly stood up from the chair and asked, "Tell me, who are you?" "Senior Brother Lu Ming, Senior Brother Lu Ming, good job." At this moment, the skinny young man shouted excitedly. Just now, although the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard saw Lu Ming, everything happened too fast and they didn't have time to call out Lu Ming's name. Lu Ming. Newcomer King Lu Ming. On the stairs, the faces of the other people from the Star Moon League slightly changed. To some people, the title of the newcomer king held some weight, especially when Lu Ming had defeated Ning Feng more than 2 months ago. So it was him? Not far away, the other old disciples of the 4 courtyards suddenly understood. It was no wonder that among this year's newcomers, only Lu Ming had the ability and guts to send 2 people from the Star Moon Alliance flying in front of the Star Moon Alliance. Lu Ming, it's you? But let me tell you, even though you're the newcomer king, you're still too inexperienced to cause trouble in the Star Moon Alliance. Liu Wei's eyes flashed. There was a cold smile at the corners of Lu Ming's lips. Step by step, he climbed up the stairs and walked toward Liu Wei and the rest. Lu Ming. Do you really dare to go against my Star Moon League? Think carefully. My Star Moon League's leader, Chen Yueshing, is an expert who is about to reach the Martial Master realm. Moreover, I don't mind telling you that behind the leader is senior brother Yarou Tianyu, who is on the bronze list. If you dare to act recklessly, you will be consigned to eternal damnation." Liu Wei yelled with an ugly expression. Lu Ming's figure paused and his footsteps came to a halt. "Yarou Tianyu. It really is Yarou Tianyu." Lu Ming's eyes flashed with shocking killing intent. At this moment, on the third floor of the Star Moon Pavilion, a few youths were observing below. One of them wore a long robe with stars and moons. This person was the leader of the Star Moon League, Chen Yueshing. "Leader, are you not going to make a move now?" one of the youths asked. "There is no need for us to make a move. Let Lu Ming do as he pleases. Liu Wei and the rest of the trash will be beaten up and it will be worth it. Senior brother Yarou Tianyu will lead the people from the disciplinary hall here. At that time, we can take down Lu Ming." Chen Yueshing smiled faintly. In his eyes, Liu Wei and the rest were just pawns that could be used. "Leader, you are wise." The other youths took the opportunity to flatter him. Below, when Liu Wei saw that Lu Ming had stopped, he thought that Lu Ming was afraid of Yarou Tianyu's reputation. He immediately revealed a smug expression and shouted, "Lu Ming, you have slapped 2 people from the Star Moon League. This is equivalent to smashing the reputation of the Star Moon League. This is a serious crime. How about this, take out 2,000 contribution points, no, 5,000 contribution points as medical fees and an apology in public. If so, I will consider letting you off. Is that so? You are really confident." Lu Ming took one step at a time and continued walking forward. Liu Wei's expression changed again and he shouted, "Lu Ming, what are you trying to do? I am warning you, stop right now." However, Lu Ming had no intention of stopping. He continued to walk towards Liu Wei step by step. Liu Wei's face began to break out in cold sweat. He suddenly roared, go together and cripple him." Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a dozen youths behind Liu Wei rushed forward. Rays of bloody light flashed. These youths did not hesitate to use bloodline eruption. "Get the hell back." Lu Ming waved his hand and slapped out. Immediately, a series of loud and dense slaps rang out in the air. The members of the Star Moon League who had rushed over were sent flying back at a speed faster than when they came. All of them screamed and fell to the ground. Blood mixed with teeth sprayed all over the ground. Lu Ming had only waved one hand from beginning to end. It was as if he was swatting away flies, sending the members of the Star Moon League flying. Hiss, a series of gasps rang out. As long as the disciples of the 4 courtyards saw this scene, they were all dumbfounded. Especially the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird courtyard, they were all trembling with excitement. So strong, Lu Ming has become stronger again. This is a genius, a true super genius. The Black Sword sect only sees him once every few years. Some of the older disciples said with complicated expressions. All of a sudden, only Liu Wei was left at the entrance of the Star Moon Pavilion. His face was pale with fright as he stared at Lu Ming with a trembling body. "Lu Ming, I'm warning you, don't mess around," Liu Wei said with a trembling voice. But Lu Ming did not look at him. Instead, he raised his head to look at the entire Star Moon Pavilion and whispered, "There's no need for the Star Moon Pavilion to exist anymore." Boom. Then, Lu Ming threw a punch at a pillar beside him. Boom. This pillar was made of extremely hard black ironwood. However, under Lu Ming's punch, it exploded with a loud bang. Wood shavings flew all over the place. Bang. Then, Lu Ming moved and attacked another pillar. With the same explosion, this pillar was smashed into pieces. Crack. 2 pillars were smashed into pieces consecutively. The entire Star Moon Pavilion started to shake a little, emitting cracking sounds. Lu Ming, are you crazy? What are you doing? Stop it. Stop it." Liu Wei's face turned pale as he screamed crazily and cried out. At this time, on the 3rd floor, Chen Yueshing could no longer remain calm and shouted crazily, damn it, what is this guy trying to do?" However, Lu Ming did not have the slightest intention of stopping. With a sword cry, he unsheathed his sword and slashed out a few sword chi towards the pillars at the side of the Star Moon Pavilion. Chapter 79. The Star Moon Pavilion had a total of 8 pillars. At this moment, 6 of them had been broken by Lu Ming, leaving only 2 behind. Even with the walls on both sides, the Star Moon Pavilion began to shake violently, emitting cracking sounds. Lu Ming, you deserve to die, you deserve to die. A furious roar came from the 3rd floor, followed by a few figures jumping down. It's Chen Yueshing, the Star Moon Alliance's leader. Chen Yueshing has finally come out. Someone shouted. At this moment, Chen Yueshing's face was twisted as he glared at Lu Ming and shouted, Lu Ming, you dare to destroy my Star Moon Pavilion. Today, I will break your bones one by one, and break your meridians one by one, turning you into a cripple worse than a pig or a dog. Lu Ming's methods were completely out of his expectations. He originally thought that no matter how strong Lu Ming was, it would take some effort to defeat Liu Wei and the others. At that time, Yarrow Tianyu would have already arrived with the people from the disciplinary hall. However, he never expected that Lu Ming's strength would far exceed his expectations. At the same time, his methods were ruthless and his guts were also out of his expectations. Lu Ming actually wanted to tear down the Star Moon Pavilion. This was his painstaking effort, so he had no choice but to appear. Lu Ming did not say anything, only coldly looking at Chen Yueshing. Lu Ming, I don't mind telling you that I broke all the bones of your friend, Pang Shi. Now, I'll let you accompany your friend. Chen Yueshing's face was twisted, flickering with shocking killing intent. The aura from his body was as heavy as a mountain. Late-stage martial master realm. This was Chen Yueshing's strength. He was extremely powerful, many times stronger than Ning Feng. Otherwise, he would not have been able to open the Star Moon Pavilion and control the Star Moon Alliance. At the bottom of the stairs, the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard were pressured by this aura. Their faces turned pale as they retreated. Lu Ming, I admit that you're very strong, but it's still too early for you to challenge me. Today, I'll teach you the principles of life for free. That is, you must keep a low profile. When you meet someone you can't defeat, you must tuck your tail between your legs. Boom. As he spoke, Chen Yueshing's aura surged once again. Chen Yueshing's bloodline was at the 4th rank. At this moment, Chen Yueshing's strength had reached the extreme, directly reaching the limit of the 8th level martial master. Lightning claw. Whoosh. Chen Yueshing stomped on the ground. With a swoosh, he arrived in front of Lu Ming. The razor-sharp claws crazily clawed at Lu Ming. In an instant, at least 20 claw attacks were launched. But Lu Ming was even faster. Sword cries rang out, and in an instant, dozens of sword lights bloomed from Lu Ming's hands, incomparably dazzling. Kai Kai, the sword chi whistled, the claw force swept out, and gusts of strong wind gushed out in all directions. The nearby new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard retreated again and again. Bang! Bang! Some of the forces shot out and struck the walls of the Star Moon Tower, causing the Star Moon Tower to shake even more violently. Ah! Suddenly, there was a scream as a figure retreated. It was Chen Yueshing. There was a deep sword wound on his shoulder, almost chopping off his arm. The spectators were all shocked beyond words. In less than 10 moves, Chen Yueshing was defeated and forced to retreat with serious injuries. Attack! Chen Yueshing roared. At this moment, he felt his heart twitching. He was afraid. Whoosh! Whoosh! The few young men who were with him rushed toward Lu Ming. Chen Yueshing himself was running wildly to the side. He wanted to run away. Chen Yueshing, don't even think about running. Lu Ming roared, and the sword light burst out, pitilessly sharp. Whoosh! Whoosh! The few young men were instantly sent flying far away, crashing heavily into the walls of the Star Moon Tower. Rumble! At this moment, the Star Moon Tower could no longer withstand it and collapsed with a rumble. Retreat quickly! Some of the disciples of the 4 courtyards who were closer to it turned pale with fright and quickly retreated. Rumble! The entire Star Moon Tower collapsed, stirring up dust in the air. Lu Ming's figure was as fast as lightning as he rushed toward Chen Yueshing. Chen Yueshing was seriously injured and his speed was greatly reduced. In a few breaths, Lu Ming caught up with him. Lu Ming, wait a minute. Everything can be discussed. What do you want? I can give it to you. Seeing that he couldn't escape, Chen Yuesheng stopped and begged. At the same time, he wanted to use benefits to keep Lu Ming in check. At the same time, he kept thinking, soon, senior brother Yarrow Tianyu and the rest will be here soon. When senior brother Yarrow Tianyu and the rest arrive, Lu Ming, let's see how you're going to die. I want revenge 10 times or 100 times more. What do I want? The cold smile at the corners of Lu Ming's lips deepened. He said, what I want is very simple. Everything that you used on my brother, Pang Shuo, will be used on you in double. Boom. He threw a punch and landed heavily on Chen Yuesheng's stomach. With a crack, several of Chen Yuesheng's ribs were broken. His body flew out heavily and he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. Next, it's your limbs. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he walked step by step to Chen Yuesheng's side. No, don't. Chen Yuesheng shouted. Stop. At this moment, a furious roar suddenly came from afar. At the same time, whoosh, whoosh. One by one, silhouettes rushed over. It's the Law Enforcement Hall. They're from the Law Enforcement Hall. The leader is Yarrow Tianyu. It's over. This time, Lu Ming is finished. The surrounding senior disciples exclaimed when they saw these people rushing over. Of course, some were surprised, a few were worried, but most were gloating. The Law Enforcement Hall was jointly established by the 4 major courts. Each court would elect some people to join the Law Enforcement Hall to maintain order in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Senior brother Lu Ming, the people from the Law Enforcement Hall are here. Let's go. The skinny young man who was saved by Lu Ming shouted. Ha ha ha, the people from the Law Enforcement Hall are here. Senior brother Yarrow Tianyu is here. Lu Ming, you're finished. How dare you break my ribs? I'll return it to you 10-fold or 100-fold. Chen Yuesheng regained his arrogance and shouted coldly when the people from the Law Enforcement Hall arrived. Law Enforcement Hall? Hee, no one can save you today. Lu Ming's eyes were still cold. He was not moved at all. He lifted his foot and stomped heavily on Chen Yuesheng's leg. The arrogance on Chen Yuesheng's face disappeared and was replaced by endless fear. He wailed, no, don't, crack. Lu Ming's foot stomped heavily. One of Chen Yuesheng's leg bones was broken into several pieces by Lu Ming's true qi. My leg. Senior brother Yarrow, save me. Chen Yuesheng wailed. Bang, bang. Lu Ming's legs were as fast as lightning as he stomped on the ground twice. These 2 feet were stepping on Chen Yuesheng's other leg and one of his arms. Immediately, Chen Yuesheng's leg and arm bones were broken into several pieces. Chapter 80. I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me? The leader was about 17 years old. He was as still as a mountain and his aura was oppressive. His eyes were filled with killing intent like a wolf or tiger. It's really Yarrow Tianyu. He came personally. Low exclamations could be heard all around. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. So, this youth was Yarrow Tianyu. His expression was still calm as he said indifferently, I heard you, but why should I stop? How dare you talk to senior brother Yarrow like that? Lu Ming, what's with your attitude? As soon as Lu Ming finished speaking, a few youths from the tribunal council shouted. Lu Ming pursed his lips and could not be bothered with them. Lu Ming, you attacked a fellow disciple for no reason and your methods are vicious. You've gone mad and seriously violated the sect rules. Now, bind yourself in chains and follow us back to the tribunal council to receive your punishment. A red-robed youth walked out and shouted loudly. Then, with a clang, he threw a thick chain in front of Lu Ming. That's right. Lu Ming, quickly surrender and await your punishment. The other youths from the tribunal council shouted as well. I violated the sect rules? Lu Ming sneered and said, then why didn't you ask me why I attacked? There's no need to ask. Anyway, we saw you seriously injure your fellow disciple and destroy the Star Moon Pavilion. This is a serious crime. The red-robed youth directly concluded. Haha, let me tell you now. I'm not guilty. I'm just punishing the sect's vermin. The Star Moon Pavilion used an extremely low price to forcefully buy the materials of new disciples. Once they disobeyed, they would be heavy-handed. One of my friends is still unconscious. Why didn't you investigate this? Lu Ming said coldly. Nonsense. He's slandering me. There's no such thing. Senior brother Yao, you have to uphold justice for me. Chen Yueshing's cultivation was profound and he did not faint. At this moment, he shouted for his innocence. Slandering? Do you think everyone else is blind? Lu Ming said. Oh. The red-robed youth turned his gaze to the youths from the Vermilion Bird courtyard and said, Did any of you see the Star Moon Pavilion forcefully by materials? And he even injured someone? But let me warn you. Before you speak, it's best to think carefully. Don't talk nonsense. Be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth. This was a blatant threat. The new disciples of the Vermilion Bird courtyard originally wanted to tell the truth, but when they heard this, their expressions all changed. As for Yao Tianyu, although he didn't say anything, his aura was oppressive. He casually glanced over, causing the faces of the disciples to turn even uglier. For a moment, no one dared to speak. Yao Tianyu sneered, and the other disciples of the enforcement hall also sneered. The red-robed youth said, Lu Ming, it seems that no one will testify for you. Now, what else do you have to say? Why aren't you surrendering? Hee. Lu Ming sneered. His gaze swept over the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird courtyard. As soon as those disciples saw Lu Ming's gaze, their faces turned red and they lowered their heads in shame. However, no one said anything. Lu Ming, what are you looking at? Was he trying to threaten them? With the law enforcement hall here, don't even think about it. Why aren't you surrendering? Was he trying to resist? Brothers, get ready to attack. The red-robed youth shouted, and a ruthless light flashed in his eyes. A few days ago, he had gone to summon Lu Ming and was kicked out by Lu Ming, which was a great humiliation to him. Enforcement hall? What bullshit enforcement hall? I've learned something today. If you want to attack, then attack. You want me to surrendering? Impossible. I, Lu Ming, am not afraid of a fight. Lu Ming held a long sword in his hand and stood there proudly. His slender figure was like a tall and straight mountain peak, full of unyielding and unswerving determination. Before he came here today, he had already guessed that this was Yao Tianyu's doing. Although he knew that with his current cultivation, he had no chance of winning against someone on the bronze list, he still came. But he still came and did it. This was his original intention. If he wanted to do something, he would do it. At worst, he would fight a bloody battle. Looking at Lu Ming's figure, the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird courtyard felt even more ashamed. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a voice was heard. The skinny youth who was saved by Lu Ming walked out with his fists clenched. His face was red, and his body was trembling. I can testify that what senior brother Lu Ming said is the truth. The Star Moon Pavilion forced us to buy the materials of the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird courtyard. They only gave us 1 silver tael for 1,000 taels of silver. If we didn't comply, we would be beaten up. Previously, there was a senior brother who didn't comply. After a few words, Chen Yueshing broke his bones and knocked him unconscious. Senior brother Lu Ming did it for us. He didn't violate any rules. Don't, the skinny youth shouted, and his voice spread far and wide. Shut up. How dare you? The red-robed youth suddenly shouted, interrupting the skinny youth's words. Then, he stared coldly at the skinny youth and said in a deep voice, Kid, how dare you? I can see that you are Lu Ming's accomplice. You actually helped Lu Ming to bring disaster to the courtyard. You even wanted to deceive the tribunal council. Your crime is unforgivable. Today, you are with Lu Ming. You can't escape punishment. The skinny youth's face suddenly turned pale. His voice trembled as he said, No, you can't do this. I am telling the truth. No need to talk nonsense. Attack. At this moment, Yao Tianyu finally spoke. He was decisive and direct. Junior brother, please step back. Lu Ming waved his palm. True qi gushed out, and the skinny youth retreated into the crowd. Lu Ming faced the people from the law enforcement hall alone. He didn't say anything, but the unyielding battle intent on his body said it all. Fight to the end. Attack together. Take down Lu Ming. It's fine as long as you don't kill him. The red-robed youth shouted. Swish. Swish. At this moment, more than a dozen young men from the Tribunal Council rushed toward Lu Ming. Sword chi, palm wind, fist force, instantly enveloped Lu Ming's body. These disciples of the Tribunal Council were all very strong. The weakest among them was at the 6th level of the Martial Master realm. Ultimate flowing light. Clang. With a sword cry, sword light burst out and sword chi burst out. Lu Ming directly killed his way into the crowd. Clang. Clang. Boom. Boom. The sounds of collisions and explosions rang out intensely. Then, a few figures retreated. They were the disciples of the Tribunal Council. They had been stabbed in the chest and the wounds went straight to the bones. They fell heavily to the ground and coughed up blood. The disciples of the 4 courtyards were shocked. Lu Ming was too strong. Not only did he fight with the Tribunal Council, but he also injured several experts of the Tribunal Council. Strong, too strong. There were many experts at the 8th level of the Martial Master realm in the Tribunal Council. Attack together, attack together. The red-robed youth shouted from the side. Swish. Swish. More disciples of the Tribunal Council rushed toward Lu Ming. This time, there were more than 30 disciples of the Tribunal Council. Kill. Lu Ming hollered, his aura soaring. Chapter 81. However, he was surrounded by nearly 30 disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall. In an instant, all kinds of attacks were launched at Lu Ming. There was no way to dodge. Bloodline eruption. Lu Ming didn't hesitate at all and directly unleashed his bloodline. Bloodline eruption increased Lu Ming's combat strength by a large margin. He ignored most of the attacks and only needed to avoid the physical attacks of the longswords and sabers. Boom. 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 Streaks of sword chi, saber energy, and fist force all hit Lu Ming, but Lu Ming's body only shook slightly. Then, he kept slashing with the Heavenly Star Sword. The flowing light sword was extremely fast. He slashed dozens of times in an instant. Ah! Ah! Screams were heard continuously. 7 or 8 figures were sent flying and fell to the ground with serious injuries. Kill. Lu Ming was in a frenzy. The genuine chi in his body was so condensed that it burst out continuously. His bloodline was now at level 4, and he could only unleash his bloodline for 5 breaths. In these 5 breaths, he was extremely powerful. Whoosh, whoosh. The Heavenly Star Sword kept slashing out. Screams were heard as one figure after another was sent flying. Bang, bang. The disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall fell to the ground one after another like sandbags. The disciples of the 4 courtyards who were watching were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. Monster, monster, Lu Ming is too strong. How long has he been in the sect? Did you see that? He actually ignored the attacks. He must have a defensive treasure on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to withstand so many attacks. Yes, he must have a defensive treasure. Lu Ming is actually not that strong. He relied on a defensive treasure to catch the Law Enforcement Hall disciples off guard. Look, he's injured. The senior disciples of the 4 courtyards discussed animatedly. Although they felt that Lu Ming should have relied on a defensive treasure, their eyes were still flashing with shock. Poochie. At this moment, Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood. After 5 breaths, more than 20 Law Enforcement Hall disciples had been seriously injured by him and couldn't fight anymore. However, he had taken so many attacks. Although he had absorbed 50% of the attacks, he was still injured. He's injured, kill him. The remaining Law Enforcement Hall disciples roared and continued to rush towards Lu Ming. Clang. A tall and thin young man exchanged a blow with Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body trembled, and he couldn't help but take a step back. 9th layer Martial Master. In the Law Enforcement Hall, a 9th level Martial Master finally made a move. As soon as Lu Ming retreated, the others rushed forward one after another. During this entire process, Yarrow Tianyu had no intention of making a move. He continued to stand at the side and watch coldly. It seemed that Lu Ming was not worthy of him personally taking action. Beside Yarrow Tianyu, there was another young man. His body was extremely muscular, like an iron tower. He did not make a move either. So what if you are at the 9th level of the martial master realm? Kill. Lu Ming attacked more than 10 times in a row, forcing the others to retreat. Then, he fought with the 9th level martial master expert. In an instant, the two of them exchanged more than 10 moves. Ting, ting. After a dozen or so moves, the young man's expression changed greatly and he retreated a dozen or so steps. Whoosh. Lu Ming took a step forward and charged towards the red-robed youth. Now, it's your turn. Lu Ming's eyes were ice-cold as killing intent flashed. The red-robed youth was scared out of his wits. So many law enforcement hall experts were actually unable to stop Lu Ming. How was this possible? He couldn't help but shout, "Senior brother Yarrow, save me." Yarrow Tianyu frowned and silently said, "He Tai, make a move." Yes. The young man behind him, who was like an iron tower, responded. Then, he suddenly stomped his feet on the ground. Boom. The ground shook and the hard floor cracked. The iron tower youth's body shot out like a cannonball. Fast, incomparably fast. It was even faster than Lu Ming's dragon snake steps. In an instant, he arrived near Lu Ming. With a punch, a ferocious and berserk fist energy crazily rushed towards Lu Ming. So strong. Lu Ming's heart trembled. This iron tower youth's punch gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Without hesitation, he erupted with all his true chi and slashed at the iron tower youth. Boom. The iron tower youth's fist landed heavily on the heavenly star sword. In that instant, Lu Ming felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. This force was irresistible. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he was sent flying. After flying for more than 10 meters, Lu Ming finally landed on the ground. Following which, Lu Ming took 8 consecutive steps back. With every step, the floor would emit a roar and crack. After 8 steps, Lu Ming stopped and spat out a mouthful of blood. He Tai has made a move. He Tai is a genius who won 8 consecutive matches on the bronze platform. He is not far from the bronze list. With him making a move, Lu Ming is doomed. That's right. Lu Ming and He Tai are too far apart. Seeing the Iron Tower youth make a move, someone exclaimed in shock. 8 consecutive matches on the bronze platform? Strong indeed. Lu Ming looked at He Tai in front of him with a grave expression. If a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect wanted to enter the bronze list, they had to go on the bronze platform and accept challenges. Only those who won 10 consecutive matches could enter the bronze list. As for He Tai, he had already won 8 consecutive matches. If he won 2 more matches, he would be able to enter the bronze list. Of course, it wouldn't be that easy. The further one went, the harder it would be. The opponents would also be stronger. But 8 consecutive matches was already very strong. You can take a punch from me. Not bad. But I advise you to surrender. The difference between you and me is too great. He Tai said indifferently. Haha, if you want to fight, then let's fight. You want me to surrender? Impossible. Lu Ming wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and laughed. Stubborn. Boom. He Tai rushed towards Lu Ming and threw out another punch. This punch was even more powerful than the previous one. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. He did not take it head-on. Instead, he used the dragon snake steps and dodged to the side. You can't avoid it. He Tai took a heavy step and the floor cracked. He was like a wild beast as he rushed towards Lu Ming. Another punch was thrown out. It was incomparably fast. This punch could not be avoided. If he could not avoid it, then he would take it head-on. Lu Ming circulated the true dragon battle art to the extreme. True chi surged as he slashed out with his sword. The heavenly star sword and He Tai's fist collided again. Boom. Lu Ming's sword chi was instantly destroyed. The difference was too great. They were not on the same level at all. He Tai's combat strength was too strong. Although he was also a 9th level martial master, an ordinary 9th level martial master was trash in front of him. He could defeat him with a single punch. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, without activating his bloodline, he could fight with an ordinary 9th level martial master expert. But compared to He Tai, The difference was too great. Bang! Lu Ming was directly blasted backward. He slid continuously for tens of meters before coming to a stop. Puff! Puff! Lu Ming spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale and his body staggered as if he could fall at any moment. Is this the strength of a true genius of the Mystic Essence Sword sect? It is indeed powerful. Chapter 82. During the newcomer trial, he had swept away the other geniuses and won the title of Newcomer King. At that time, he felt that the other geniuses were only SOSO. Now that he thought about it, he was wrong. The other geniuses among the newcomers were not too weak, but too immature. They had not grown up yet. Perhaps in a few years, some of them would grow very strong. Take him down. Tai waved his hand and said. Lu Ming was already seriously injured, so there was no need for him to take action. Let's see how you resist now. The remaining dozen or so disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall walked towards Lu Ming with a ferocious expression. Lu Ming had actually injured more than 20 of them. They were both afraid and hateful of Lu Ming. Haha. Lu Ming supported himself with his long sword. He glanced around and sneered again and again. Damn it, what are you laughing at? You'll see when you get to the Law Enforcement Hall. A skinny young man smiled sinisterly and clawed at Lu Ming's head. He wanted to press Lu Ming's head to the ground and humiliate him. But whoosh! A sword light flashed and a few streams of blood spurted out. There were 5 fingers in the blood. The skinny young man looked at his bare palm in a daze and then let out a heart-wrenching scream. Ah, my fingers, Lu Ming, I want you dead. That sword attack just now was of course from Lu Ming. Go, let's attack together. The others roared. There were a total of 10 people, including a 9th-level martial master expert. One attack after another was directed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming barely raised his true chi and waved his sword to block. Clang! Clang! After a few consecutive moves, Lu Ming's body kept retreating. His body was hit by a sword and blood immediately flowed out. Lu Ming, get down and surrender. A young man from the Law Enforcement Hall shouted. In your dreams. There were only 2 simple words in response. Then I'll beat you until you're down. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One attack after another was directed at Lu Ming. These disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall were all experts. Lu Ming, on the other hand, was severely injured. It was difficult for him to resist. After a few moves, more wounds appeared on his body, and blood flowed freely. Lu Ming's entire body was dyed red with blood. His footsteps were unsteady, as if he could collapse at any moment. However, he still stood tall and straight, and his gaze was still firm and persistent. At this moment, the scene was silent. The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. No one spoke. They all stared blankly at that figure. Senior brother Lu Ming, the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard all clenched their fists, their eyes red. Their eyes were filled with guilt. They felt guilty for not speaking up earlier. They all knew that the reason Lu Ming had come here and demolished the Star Moon Pavilion was to avenge Pang Shi. For a friend, for a brother, to be able to do this, this was a true man, a true man. Compared to Lu Ming, they felt that they were too weak. Stop it. Stop it. The skinny young man roared and suddenly rushed forward. Slap. The red-robed young man suddenly rushed forward and sent the skinny young man flying with a slap. He said arrogantly, "Get lost. You'll see what happens later." Then, he looked at Lu Ming and laughed loudly. Lu Ming, weren't you very arrogant earlier? What's wrong? You can't do it anymore. Come and hit me, haha. Bang. As soon as the red-robed young man finished speaking, he received a heavy slap to the face. The slap was extremely loud and ruthless. The red-robed young man's body spun a few times before he stopped. One side of his face was almost smashed, and blood was spurting out of his teeth. He was beaten senseless, and for a moment, he even forgot to scream. He stared blankly at the person who hit him. It was a woman, an extremely seductive and sexy woman with an explosive figure. However, at this moment, her expression was incomparably cold. Moulins. Moulins. A name flashed through the red-robed young man's mind. Moulins had finally arrived. No one could see how she arrived. Since you asked for a slap, I'll fulfill your wish, Moulins said coldly. Then, she waved her hand again. Slap. Another slap. This time, it landed directly on the other side of the red-robed young man's face. Blood was still spurting out of his mouth because he had lost all his teeth. The red-robed young man did not fly out. He was pulled by a force and spun a dozen times on the spot before he came to a stop. It was obvious how heavy the slap was. As soon as he stopped, he saw Moulins's cold face again. His heart skipped a beat and he almost wet himself. He shouted, "Don't laugh, want." His mouth was leaking air and he could not even speak clearly. Get lost. Bang. Moulins kicked the red-robed young man more than 10 meters away. He screamed and fainted. Not far away, Yarrow Tianyu, who had been very calm, could no longer stay calm. He looked at Moulins with a grave expression. The people from the Tribunal Council did not dare to make a move. They looked at Moulins solemnly. Moulins did not look at the others. She walked to Lu Ming's side and asked with a concerned expression, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I won't die. I owe you another favor this time." Lu Ming smiled. "You can still laugh. Hurry up and take this pill." Moulins took out a pill and handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not stand on ceremony and swallowed it. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Then, it turned into a wave of energy that permeated Lu Ming's body. His wound quickly stopped bleeding and he was no longer bleeding. What a strong medicinal effect. This healing pill must be of a high grade. Moulins looked at Yarrow Tianyu and said coldly, "How dare you attack a disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard? Elder Moulins." Yarrow Tianyu's expression was ugly. He cupped his fists and said, "Elder Moulins, we are enforcing the law impartially." Lu Ming relied on his high cultivation to injure dozens of people from the Star Moon Pavilion for no reason. He even destroyed the Star Moon Pavilion by force. Such an unruly and reckless person must be punished severely by the Tribunal Council. But Lu Ming is crazy. Not only did he resist arrest, but he also injured so many people from the Tribunal Council. Such a person, no matter what, he must be severely punished. Elder Moulins, as the head elder of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, I hope you won't cover for him. Nonsense. The skinny young man's face was swollen after being slapped by the red-robed young man. He walked out and said, "It was clearly the Star Moon Pavilion who forcefully bought the materials of our Vermilion Bird Courtyard's new disciples. They even wantonly attacked people. Senior brother Lu Ming is fighting for justice for us. How is this against the rules?" "That's right, senior brother Lu Ming is fighting for justice for us." Several new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard walked out. With Mulan's arrival, their courage was boosted. They could no longer hold it in and told the truth. "Nonsense," Yarrow Tianyu said in a low voice, "how could the Star Moon Pavilion do such a thing? If they did, the Tribunal Council would have punished them long ago. Moreover, you said that they forcefully bought a courtyard from the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Does the Star Moon Pavilion have a grudge with the Vermilion Bird Courtyard?" Chapter 83. No, that's not it. We're speaking the truth. A few disciples from the Vermilion Bird Courtyard hurriedly explained. "Enough." Moulins waved her hand and looked at Yarrow Tianyu. "Now, let me tell you clearly. I don't care who Lu Ming beat up or whose house he destroyed. I don't care. If I say that Lu Ming is innocent, he is innocent. If I say that he is innocent, he is innocent." How domineering. This is Moulins. When she's domineering, she doesn't talk reason at all. Yarrow Tianyu's face instantly turned red. He almost suffered internal injuries. Moulins didn't play by the rules. However, he couldn't do anything to Moulins. "Elder Moulins, although you're an elder of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard and the granddaughter of Principal Yang, you can't bully others just because you're powerful. There are so many disciples here watching." Yarrow Tianyu finally said this after a long time. "Yes, I'm bullying others. What's wrong with that?" Moulins replied calmly. Yarrow Tianyu was so angry that his body trembled. All right. If that's the case, I'll report this to the elders of the disciplinary hall. Let's go. Mulins arrived in a domineering manner. Yarrow Tianyu knew that it was impossible to take down Lu Ming today. After saying this, he turned to leave. Who said that you can leave? Mulins's cold voice sounded. Yarrow Tianyu paused and looked at Mulins. He gritted his teeth and said, Elder Mulins, do you have any other instructions? You injured him and want to leave just like that. Aren't you being too lenient? Why don't you leave the medical fees behind? I think you'll need at least 1 or 2 million taels of silver to recover from such injuries. Mulins's gaze lingered on Lu Ming as she spoke slowly. Medical fees? 1 or 2 million taels of silver? All around, the onlookers were stunned. Some of them dug their ears hard, thinking that they had misheard. Even Lu Ming was in a daze. Mulins was asking for an exorbitant price. Sure enough, Yarrow Tianyu couldn't hold it in anymore and roared, medical fees? Mulins, don't go overboard. Lu Ming injured so many of us. I didn't even ask him for medical expenses, and you actually asked me for medical expenses? Impossible, let me tell you, impossible. The people who injured you, they deserve it. Let me tell you, if you don't pay the medical fees today, I don't mind breaking your bones one by one. Mulins said coldly. He was too domineering and overbearing. He didn't give Yarrow Tianyu any face at all. No, it wasn't that he didn't give Yarrow Tianyu any face, but that he didn't put him in his eyes at all. Yarrow Tianyu's expression was extremely ugly. Although he was a genius on the bronze list, he was still just a bronze disciple. If he were to fight with Mulins, he would definitely be slapped to death. His face alternated between green and white. If he were to give in today and pay the medical fees, he would lose all his face. Haha, niece Mulins, in my opinion, let's just let this matter rest. At this moment, a generous voice was heard. In the sky, a figure descended from the sky. It was an old man in his 60s. He wore a silver robe and had a kind smile on his face. It was a silver-robed elder. Seeing this old man, Yarrow Tianyu was overjoyed and shouted, Elder Ming, you must seek justice for this disciple. Elder Mulins is too much. This silver-robed elder belonged to the Everdragon courtyard. Mulins's expression also darkened. She said, Old Ming, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. The surrounding people were dumbfounded. Mulins was too awesome. She called a silver-robed elder an old man. However, Elder Ming did not show any signs of anger. He was still smiling as he said, I have already heard about the cause and effect of this matter. I think there is a big misunderstanding in this matter. In my opinion, the fault lies with the Star Moon Pavilion. The Star Moon Pavilion forcefully bought the disciples' materials. Lu Ming fought for justice and injured the disciple of the Star Moon Pavilion. As members of the disciplinary hall, Yarrow Tianyu and the rest naturally had to intervene when they saw Lu Ming injuring someone. That was why a fight broke out. This is a complete misunderstanding. Since both sides have people injured, I think we should just let this matter rest. Lu Ming's heart trembled. This was abandoning the rook to save the king. This elder Ming looked amiable, but he was actually a cunning old fox. In one sentence, he pushed all the blame to the Star Moon Pavilion. In this way, Yarrow Tianyu naturally did not need to pay the medical fees. Yarrow Tianyu and the rest would also have nothing to say to the disciplinary hall elder. Yarrow Tianyu's face darkened and he did not say anything. If this matter was really investigated, the fact that the Star Moon Pavilion forcefully bought the materials of the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard would definitely not be concealed. Hence, it was good to push the blame to the Star Moon Pavilion. Mulins's eyes flashed slightly. This elder Ming was a silver-robed elder. If he was bent on protecting Yarrow Tianyu, there was nothing she could do. Oh! Since it is the Star Moon Pavilion's fault, they must be severely punished. Otherwise, the disciples of the 4 courtyards will not be convinced. Mulins's eyes flashed and she smiled. Of course. The Star Moon Pavilion will definitely be severely punished. Moreover, all the materials will be returned. Elder Ming smiled and said to Yarrow Tianyu, Tianyu, why aren't you bringing the disciples of the disciplinary hall back to treat their injuries? Yes. Yarrow Tianyu cupped his fists and instructed the disciples who were not injured to help the injured disciples back to treat their injuries. Lu Ming. Afterward, Yarrow Tianyu glanced at Lu Ming. His gaze was extremely cold. He then turned and left. Yarrow Tianyu. Lu Ming suddenly shouted. Yarrow Tianyu paused and turned around to look at Lu Ming coldly. Lu Ming stared at Yarrow Tianyu with bright eyes and said, Yarrow Tianyu, you asked some underlings to besiege me. What kind of ability is that? If you have the ability, fight with me. I am challenging you now. Do you dare to accept the challenge? As soon as he said that, the crowd suddenly fell into silence. Lu Ming actually dared to challenge Yarrow Tianyu? How could that be? How could he be Yarrow Tianyu's opponent? You want to challenge me? Yarrow Tianyu asked in return. That's right. Lu Ming replied firmly. Yarrow Tianyu revealed a mocking smile and said disdainfully, Lu Ming, I am a disciple on the bronze roll. What right do you have to challenge me? Wait until you become a disciple on the bronze roll before you challenge me. Now, you are not qualified. Yarrow Tianyu's eyes were full of arrogance and disdain. After saying that, he turned and left. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Disdain to accept my challenge? Lu Ming couldn't help but clench his fists. Lu Ming, don't think too much. This is the rule of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. If you want to challenge a disciple on the bronze roll, you must also be on the bronze roll. Otherwise, you don't have the right to challenge. Mulins explained to Lu Ming. I see. Lu Ming muttered. However, Yarrow Tianyu's arrogant and disdainful eyes just now lingered in Lu Ming's mind. Bronze roll? I will reach it soon. Yarrow Tianyu, just you wait. Lu Ming clenched his fists and his eyes were firm. Lu Ming, are you okay? Lu Ming, are you okay? Chapter 84. I'm fine. Lu Ming smiled. But the two of them still looked at Lu Ming in shock. This was because Lu Ming's body was completely drenched in blood. He looked like a bloody man. Especially Hua Kai. In addition to shock, there was also a complicated look in his eyes. Deep in his eyes, there was even gratitude and admiration. By the way, how is Pang Sha? Lu Ming asked worriedly. He's fine. The alchemist has already set his bones and fed him a healing pill. He should be fine. Hua Kai said. That's good. Lu Ming smiled. Suddenly, his body swayed and his face turned pale. Lu Ming, what's wrong? Mulins, Feng Wu, and Hua Kai were shocked. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and said, It seems that I have to treat my injuries on the spot. Immediately, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and began to heal his injuries with the true dragon battle art. Damn it! Hua Kai growled. Lu Ming couldn't even go back to heal his injuries. It was obvious how serious his injuries were. Then, Hua Kai, Feng Wu, and Mulins all stood near Lu Ming to protect him. The surrounding onlookers watched for a while and left one after another. The news of this battle spread throughout the entire Mystic Essence Sword sect at the speed of a whirlwind. After hearing this news, everyone had different reactions. Some scoffed, thinking that Lu Ming was a reckless man who did things impulsively and disregarded the consequences. It was unwise to fight even though he knew that he was no match for Lu Ming. But some praised Lu Ming, thinking that Lu Ming was loyal and firm on the path of martial arts. He had an indomitable will and the will to advance bravely. On the path of martial arts, one should be fearless and attack when necessary. If one had to be fearful of everything and even swallow their anger, then what was the point of practicing martial arts? Anyway, there were all kinds of opinions. Of course, Lu Ming didn't know all of this. He was focused on healing his injuries. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When Lu Ming opened his eyes, it was already evening. Lu Ming, are you feeling better? Mulins was the first to notice that Lu Ming had woken up. She hastily asked. Much better. Lu Ming smiled faintly. After 12 hours of recuperation, his injuries had basically stabilized. As long as he persevered for a period of time, he would be completely healed. Feng Wu and Hua Kai also hurried to Lu Ming's side. Lu Ming felt warmth in his heart. He knew that when he was recuperating, these people had been guarding him. However, There was a skinny young man who had not left and was watching from a distance. "Let's go back," Lu Ming said. Then, he walked up to the skinny youth and asked, "What's your name?" "Lu. Senior brother Lu, my name is Li Yi." The skinny youth said excitedly. "Li Yi. Thank you for this." Lu Ming smiled. No, senior brother Lu Ming, I should be the one thanking you." Li Yi said hastily. "Let's go back to the vermilion bird courtyard together." Lu Ming smiled. The few of them went back to the vermilion bird courtyard together. Before long, Lu Ming and the others had returned to the dormitory. After Lu Ming came back, he did not go back to his room. Instead, he went to Pang She's room. Pang She was lying on the bed with bandages all over his body. His legs and arms were also in plaster. At this moment, Pang She had already woken up. Seeing Lu Ming come in, he struggled to get up and shouted, "Senior brother Lu Ming, are you all right? Don't move. Lie down and rest." Lu Ming quickly stopped Pang She from moving and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Senior brother Lu Ming, I'm sorry. It's all my fault that you're so badly injured," Pang She said with tears in his eyes. Obviously, he had heard about Lu Ming's battle. After all, more than 6 hours had passed. "I should be the one apologizing. Yaro Tianyu's target was me, but you were implicated," Lu Ming said. No, it's not senior brother Lu Ming's fault. It's all my fault for being too weak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have implicated you," Pang She said. Pang She said. His eyes were filled with self-blame and determination. "All right, Big Shaw, don't think too much. Have a good rest." Lu Ming smiled and patted Pang She's shoulder. Then, he walked out of Pang She's room. After returning to his room, Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon. The crimson scale snake armor is so damaged. After taking off all his clothes, Lu Ming looked at the tattered crimson scale snake armor in his hands and smiled bitterly. This time, if he did not have the crimson scale snake armor as a layer of protection, his injuries would have been worse. After changing his clothes, Lu Ming went out to fetch water to wash his body. Then, he returned to the Temple of Paragon and continued to heal his injuries. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. 7 days later, Lu Ming practiced a set of fist techniques in the courtyard to exercise his muscles and bones. "After 7 days, my injuries have healed." Lu Ming felt it and thought to himself. His eyes flashed with joy. He realized that the true chi cultivated by the true dragon battle art was not only strong and condensed, but also very effective in healing injuries. If it was an ordinary person, it would take at least a month to recover from such injuries. However, he only used 7 days. A divine-level cultivation art was indeed very useful. Creak. At this moment, the door of the courtyard was pushed open and Feng Wu walked in. "Lu Ming, how are your injuries? I brought some medicinal wine for you. Do you want to try it?" Feng Wu smiled brightly. "I've already recovered." Lu Ming smiled. "Ah!" The smile on Feng Wu's face froze. She looked at Lu Ming as if he was a monster and said, "It's only been 7 days and you've already recovered?" "Yes, what's so strange about it? Don't you know that I'm a genius?" Lu Ming waved his hand and his palm cut through the air, making a violent whistling sound. Then, he looked at Feng Wu with a smug face. "Genius? Can a genius be beaten up like this?" Feng Wu curled her lips in disdain. However, there was still shock in the depths of her eyes. He had recovered in 7 days. What a monster. "Oh right, Feng Wu, can you tell me about the bronze list? How strong are the geniuses on the bronze list?" Lu Ming asked. "Bronze list? Very strong." Speaking of the bronze list, Feng Wu's face became serious and said, "You also know that the bronze list requires you to win 10 matches in a row on the bronze platform. It's not easy to win 10 matches in a row. The further you go, the more difficult it is. For example, after you win 8 matches in a row, you will have to face an opponent who also won 8 matches in a row in the 9th match. After you win 9 matches in a row, you will have to face an opponent who also won 9 matches in a row. Therefore, it's really difficult to win 10 matches in a row. Therefore, the geniuses on the bronze list are extremely powerful. Defeating a martial artist of the same level with one move is as easy as eating and drinking. I heard that most of the geniuses on the bronze list have successfully cultivated at least one profound level low-grade martial technique. Even if they didn't succeed in cultivating a profound level martial technique, they would have mastered some kind of secret technique. Some even cultivated the way of body refining. Chapter 85. Then how many people are on the bronze list? Lu Ming asked. 56 people. Other than the Chilean courtyard, there are a total of 56 geniuses on the bronze list. Feng Wu said. Only 56. Lu Ming whispered. Every year, the Shenyuan sword sect would recruit a group of disciples. As long as they were not over 30 years old, they would be considered disciples. After so many years, the number of bronze disciples in the Shenyuan sword sect had already exceeded 50,000. There were only 56 geniuses on the bronze list who exceeded 50,000, 1 in 100. One had to know that those who were able to join the Shenyuan sword sect had to go through many examinations. It already represented talent, and they had to go through 1 in 100. From this, it could be seen how talented the geniuses on the bronze list were. Yarou Tianyu, what rank is he? Lu Ming asked again. 51. Feng Wu's eyes flashed, he looked at Lu Ming carefully, and said, You can't really be thinking of challenging Yarou Tianyu, right? Let me tell you, Yarou Tianyu's talent is terrifying. He joined the Mystic Essence Sword sect 2 years ago. I heard that during the newcomer trial, he was a strong contender for newcomer king. Although he failed, his talent is not to be underestimated. Although he is ranked 51st, his ability has improved very quickly. I believe that he will continue to rise. Lu Ming, in another year's time, it will not be a problem for you to defeat him. However, it is still too early this year. Feng Wu, you don't believe me? How about we make a bet? Let's bet on whether I can defeat Yarou Tianyu within 4 months. Lu Ming smiled slightly. Oh, what are you betting on? Feng Wu said. What are you betting on? Let me think about it. Lu Ming rubbed his chin, and then, his eyes started to wander around Feng Wu's body, from upstream to downstream, and then from downstream to upstream. From time to time, he would even sigh. Feng Wu's beautiful face immediately turned red. She glared at Lu Ming and shouted, Lu Ming, you're shameless, don't even think about it. Feng Wu, why are you scolding me? Are you thinking the wrong way? I just want to bet on a big meal to see if you have that much money. You see, aren't your thoughts impure? Lu Ming asked in surprise. Feng Wu's face turned even redder, all the way to his ears. He glared fiercely at Lu Ming and said fiercely, All right, I'll bet. At that time, if I don't ruthlessly slaughter you, I won't be called Feng Wu. Then, he threw a jar of medicinal wine at Lu Ming and walked away angrily. Ha ha ha. Lu Ming laughed out loud. It was quite interesting to occasionally tease the great beauty Feng Wu. Opening the wine jug, Lu Ming gulped down a few mouthfuls. Then, he began to consider his future path of cultivation. Cultivating the foundation spear technique like this is too slow. If it continues like this, I don't know when I will be able to cultivate the flaming astral spear technique. I must use external forces to speed up the cultivation of the foundation spear technique. If one wanted to enter the bronze list, they had to master a profound level martial skill. Got it. As Lu Ming was thinking, his eyes suddenly lit up. Following which, he gulped down the entire jar of medicinal wine. It was a good wine, but unfortunately, it had a medicinal taste and lacked a lot of flavor. Lu Ming clicked his tongue and walked out. The first place he went was the contribution hall. Exchanging 2 million silver taels for contribution points, he had a total of 20,000 contribution points. He only had a few 100,000 silver taels left. Adding the contribution points from before, he had a total of 25,500 contribution points. Then, he began to exchange for demon beast blood essence. What he wanted to exchange now was the blood essence of a second-class 8th level demon beast. The blood essence of a second-class 8th level demon beast was worth 800 contribution points. Lu Ming exchanged 20 sets, which cost him 16,000 contribution points. It was too expensive, causing Lu Ming's heart to twitch a few times. He wanted to exchange for some Class 9 LV2 demonic beast blood essence, but it cost 1,600 contribution points per set. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and could only give up for the time being. After exchanging for demon beast blood essence, Lu Ming left the Mystic Essence Sword sect and headed east. The layout of the Mystic Essence Sword sect was rather peculiar. The 4 courtyards occupied the 4 most majestic mountains in the 4 directions. As for the central region, it was an even wider region. This area not only had the Chilean courtyard, but also the mission hall, the contribution hall, the bronze platform, and other important places of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Further north of the Black Tortoise courtyard was the core area of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. This was because the sect master, gold-robed elders, gold-level disciples, and some silver-robed elders of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were cultivating in this area. It was the core area of the Mystic Essence Sword sect's power. The east of the Azure Dragon courtyard was connected to a vast mountain range. This mountain range was called the Coastal Mountain Range. It was vast and boundless, and countless demon beasts lived in it. It was said that beyond the Coastal Mountain Range was the Endless Sea. It could be said that the Burning Sun Empire was at the easternmost part of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming wanted to go to the Coastal Mountain Range to find a good place to practice his spear technique. It was impossible for Lu Ming to go deep into the Coastal Mountain Range. He was only at the periphery. 2 days later, Lu Ming went about 200 miles deep. Rumble. A waterfall rumbled. The water fell from a height of over 1,000 meters, forming a huge impact that shook the surrounding few hundred meters. This is it. I'll use this waterfall to cultivate. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Then, Lu Ming took out the flame-patterned spear and slowly walked towards the waterfall from the side. The silver water column fell from a height of over 1,000 meters, and its momentum was extremely terrifying. The closer he got, the more he could feel the majestic power. To practice the spear, the first thing is to practice the spear. Only when the spear is stable can the other basic spear techniques be easily grasped. Then, Lu Ming grabbed the end of the spear with one hand, straightened his hand, and extended the spear into the waterfall. The moment the spear was washed by the waterfall, Lu Ming felt an extremely strong pressure on the spear. He bent his wrist and threw the spear downwards. True Qi erupted as he pulled back the spear with a fierce force. What a strong force, it's not stable at all. However, this is also a good place to cultivate. Continue. Lu Ming's eyes were bright and unwavering. He continued to extend the spear and infused his true qi into the spear. This time, he held on for 2 more breaths before the spear was thrown downwards by the waterfall. Continue. Continue. Lu Ming was not discouraged and continued to cultivate over and over again. Lu Ming realized that cultivating the spear like this consumed a terrifying amount of true qi. Every time he cultivated for a period of time, Lu Ming would have to go to the side and circulate the true dragon art to recover his true qi. Of course, this also had its benefits. Every time he drained his true qi, he would cultivate and replenish it. This would make his true qi more condensed and his foundation more stable. During this period, Lu Ming would occasionally devour and refine a portion of demonic beast's blood essence. His cultivation base was rapidly increasing. 7 days later, Lu Ming could already hold the spear in the waterfall for more than 10 minutes. However, it was very unstable. The spear swayed back and forth in the waterfall. However, this was already a great improvement. Chapter 86. At this point, Lu Ming's progress in the foundation spear technique was lightning fast. His spear thrust was as steady as a mountain, and he could even stab a fly flying in the air. On the third 7 days, Lu Ming even tied 100 jin stone under the tip of the spear. Holding the 100 jin stone, Lu Ming practiced his spear in the waterfall. Just like that, a month passed. After a month of hard work, Lu Ming finally cultivated the foundation spear technique to an extremely profound level. Holding the spear in his hand, he was as steady as a mountain. And after a month of hard work, and at the same time, he had refined all 20 portions of demonic beast blood essence. Lu Ming's cultivation had improved at lightning speed. He had already reached the peak of the 7th level martial master, and was not far from the 8th level. As the 20 portions of blood essence were divided into a month of devouring and refining, Lu Ming's cultivation was not the slightest bit shaky and was still very stable. Now, I can start cultivating the astral fire spear technique. Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon, took out the astral fire spear technique, and began to read it carefully. The astral fire spear technique belonged to the fire attribute and was divided into 6 moves. Astral fire spear technique, fire dance, broken armor, moon seizing, lightning chasing, landslide, explosion. 6 moves, except for the explosion move, the other 5 moves had no difference in strength. It was just that the usage of the spear was different, and the level of comprehension was different. After reading carefully, Lu Ming began to cultivate. At the end of the stairs, the faintly discernible palace was constantly chanting scriptures, which made Lu Ming's mind extremely clear, and he comprehended martial skills very quickly. Kai kai buzz buzz, the sound of the spear piercing through the air and the vibrating of the spear itself resounded throughout the Temple of Paragon. This cultivation lasted for half a month. In the mountain forest, Lu Ming's figure moved freely, and a fire-patterned spear danced in his hand like a flaming dragon. Kai, Lu Ming suddenly thrust out his spear. Astral fire spear technique, broken armor. The long spear pierced through the air with unparalleled speed. Like a bolt of lightning, it pierced towards a 2-meter-tall boulder. At the tip of the spear, there was a rotating cutting force. Bang! The boulder was pierced through like tofu by the flame-patterned spear. Astral fire spear art, landslide. All of a sudden, the fire-patterned spear shook. The body of the spear flicked, and a vibrating force was generated. Boom! The boulder exploded from the middle, sending rubble flying everywhere. I have finally reached the 1st level of the astral fire spear technique. Lu Ming's face lit up. As expected of a low-grade profound rank martial skill, it was extremely powerful. Lu Ming had only cultivated it to the 1st level, but he felt that its power had already surpassed the flowing lightsword art. After all, the flowing lightsword art had been stuck at the 5th level, and it was difficult to break through. The 1st level of the flaming astral spear art was equivalent to the 6th level of the flowing lightsword art. Generally speaking, if one was not a martial grandmaster, it would be very difficult to successfully cultivate a profound grade martial technique. For example, the Zhu family's ancestor, Zhu Bing, had cultivated for dozens of years before barely reaching the 1st level. As for Lu Ming, he had reached the 1st level in just half a month. This was inseparable from the effect of the chanting sound. Of course, if Lu Ming had not bitterly cultivated the foundation spear technique for a month, he would not have been able to cultivate the flaming astral spear art so quickly. Then, he continued to cultivate. 7 days later, Lu Ming sat cross-legged on a bluestone, frowning as he pondered. It's still lacking a little. It doesn't feel very smooth. After this period of cultivation, he realized that his cultivation of the flaming astral spear art was still lacking a little. He had not comprehended the essence of the flaming astral spear art. If he were to cultivate like this, even with the help of the chanting sound, his cultivation progress would not reach the level that Lu Ming was satisfied with. Maybe it's because of the environment. The flaming astral spear art belongs to the fire attribute. I should cultivate in a place filled with fire attribute spirit chi. Only then can I be like a fish in water. Only then can I cultivate faster with the chanting sound. Where is the fire attribute spirit chi? That's right, the Lingnan fire region. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he thought of a place. The Lingnan fire region was southwest of the mystic essence sword sect. It was an area of volcanic eruptions. The volcanoes covered a radius of 1,000 miles and were filled with fire and fire attribute spirit chi. It was perfect to cultivate the flaming astral spear art there. The key was that the area not only had a large number of fire attribute demonic beasts, but also produced a spirit grass called flame crystal grass. The flame crystal grass was one of the precious materials needed to cultivate the 3rd level of the true dragon of battle art. It was more precious than the condensing spirit fruit and the blood smoke stone. If he were to exchange it at the mystic essence sword sect, Lu Ming estimated that it would cost at least 10 to 20,000 contribution points. Going to the Lingnan fire region was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Immediately, Lu Ming returned to the Mystic Essence Sword sect to visit Pang Shi. After such a long time, Pang Shi had already recovered and was cultivating even more diligently. Seeing that Pang Shi was fine, Lu Ming was relieved. He then used his contribution points to exchange for some detoxification pills and true qi recovery pills before heading to the Lingnan fire region. On the way, Lu Ming caught a Class 4 Stage 2 Wind Lion as a mount. The Wind Lion was extremely fast, much faster than the Greenscale Horse. 5 days later, Lu Ming arrived at the Lingnan fire region. Before he had even entered the Lingnan fire region, he could already feel a wave of hot air blowing against his face. After releasing the Wind Lion, Lu Ming walked into the Lingnan fire region on foot. There were no volcanoes in the periphery of the Lingnan fire region. The ground was pitch black, like scorched rocks. There were waves of hot air coming out from the ground. Sizzle, sometimes, there would be a wave of hot air rushing out from the ground. If an ordinary person touched it, they would be scalded. Not long after Lu Ming entered, he saw some figures occasionally. These people had a name. They were called stone pickers. In the center of the Lingnan fire region, there were many volcanoes. When these volcanoes erupted, they would spit out a type of or called flamestone. Flamestone could be refined into flame iron, which was an excellent material for forging spirit weapons. However, those who came here to pick up stones were usually rogue cultivators with low cultivation, and even ordinary people. The Lingnan fire region was full of danger. From time to time, the ground would spit out hot air, and sometimes even magma and flames. Even martial Dao experts would be seriously injured or even killed if they were hit by it. The flamestone was, after all, just an ore, so it was not expensive. Therefore, those with high cultivation rarely came here. Lu Ming did not stay in the periphery for too long. He wanted to go to the central region, where many fire-type beasts lived. The fire-type spirit qi was also stronger there. That was the place for cultivation. Soon, Lu Ming passed through the periphery and arrived at the central region. In the central region, the air was even hotter, as if he was in a big steamer. The stones on the ground were fiery red, and he could even hear a sizzling sound. Lu Ming looked over. Occasionally, he could see a stream of magma gushing out from the ground. This region was even more dangerous, and almost no one came here. Lu Ming circulated his genuine qi throughout his body to resist the heat. At the same time, he was fully focused on observing the situation on the ground. Chapter 87. After walking for about 10 miles, Lu Ming stopped. This was because a ferocious tiger covered in red flames had appeared in front of him. The red flame demonic tiger, a Class 8 LV2 demonic beast, belonged to the fire attribute demonic beast. It usually lived in places with rich fire attribute spiritual qi. Roar. The red flaming fiend tiger suddenly let out a loud roar. It opened its mouth and spat out a column of fire toward Lu Ming. Good timing. Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he struck with the flame pattern spear. Astral fire spear art, broken armor. With a thrust of his spear, a rotating cutting power burst out, destroying the fire pillar that the crimson flame demonic tiger had spat out. Then, Lu Ming rushed toward the red flame demonic tiger and smashed his spear down. Astral fire spear art, landslide. The spear pressed down, producing a violent whistling sound. The red flame demonic tiger seemed to have sensed the danger. Its fiery red hair stood up and emitted scorching flames. These flames condensed into a huge fireball in the air and blasted toward the flame pattern spear, trying to block the attack. But it was all in vain. The flame pattern spear was unstoppable. With a slight shake, the fireball collapsed and the spear continued to smash down. Bang! The spear shaft smashed on the red flame demonic tiger's head, producing a cracking sound. The red flame demonic tiger's forehead was directly dented. The red flame demonic tiger's huge body rolled back dozens of meters before stopping. There was no trace of life in it. Lu Ming walked over and manipulated his bloodline to suck out the red flame demonic tiger's blood essence. Lu Ming would not miss the blood essence of a Class 8 LV2 demonic beast. It cost 800 contribution points in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Circulating the spirit-devouring bloodline, it did not take long for the Red Flame demonic tiger's blood essence to be refined. Lu Ming's cultivation improved again, but he was still a little short of breaking through to the martial master realm. The flame aura here is rich. Let's practice the astral fire spear art here. Immediately, Lu Ming immersed himself in the astral fire spear art and began to practice. Kai kai, buzz buzz, spear shadows crisscrossed, and energy surged. As soon as he started cultivating, Lu Ming felt incomparably smooth. He operated the spear arts without the slightest bit of hindrance, as if he wanted to merge with the surrounding environment. As expected, the environment had a huge impact on the cultivation of martial techniques. Smooth, too smooth. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he immersed himself in this feeling. After cultivating for 6 hours, Lu Ming finally stopped. Hoo, Lu Ming panted heavily. When he cultivated here, he had to circulate his true qi to protect his body at all times. He also had to observe the surroundings to see if there was magma or flames gushing out. It consumed a lot of his true qi and mind. However, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with excitement. After only cultivating for 6 hours, Lu Ming felt that his astral flame spear technique had made great progress. Then, Lu Ming retreated to the outer area to recover his true qi. After recovering his true qi, Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon again. With the help of the chanting, he continued to comprehend the feeling of cultivating in the central area. Sure enough, with the chanting, the feeling of cultivating became clearer, and his comprehension of the astral flame spear technique improved. A few hours later, Lu Ming entered the central area again to cultivate the astral flame spear technique. Just like this, Lu Ming cultivated in the central area. When his true qi was exhausted, he retreated to the outer area to recover. Then, with the help of the chanting, he started to comprehend the astral flame spear technique. Lu Ming's comprehension of the astral flame spear technique was improving rapidly. In just half a month, Lu Ming's astral flame spear technique had broken through to the 2nd level, which was a small success. In this half a month, Lu Ming had killed no less than 10 fire-based demonic beasts. 5 of them were Class 8 LV2, and 1 was even Class 9 LV2. The rest were all below Class 8 LV2. After devouring and refining the blood essence of these demonic beasts and cultivating for half a month, Lu Ming's cultivation finally broke through to LV8 Martial Master. Such a cultivation was already very high among the bronze disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Huff. Once again, Lu Ming exhausted his true qi and retreated to the outer area. He sat in a secluded pile of rocks to recover. When Lu Ming's true qi was half recovered, he suddenly heard a commotion not far away. No, why did you catch me? I'm just an ordinary person with no cultivation. I can't help you. I'm only a LV3 martial warrior. I can't help you. Let me go. Voices begging for mercy could be heard. Shut up, what's with the noise? I said you can help, so you can help. It's your fortune to be able to help a disciple of the Shifang sword sect. A cold voice sounded. It was a young man. Young heroes of the Shifang sword sect, if I can help you, I'll definitely help you. But you want us to enter the central area, even close to the inner area. It's very dangerous there. With my cultivation, I'll be burned to death if I'm not careful. Please spare me. Someone begged for mercy. Clap. Immediately, there was a slap. The young voice said again, cut the crap. What do I want you to do? What are you going to do? If you talk nonsense again, I'll cut you with my sword. The other side calmed down. Suddenly, there was a sound of something breaking through the air. A figure appeared on the pile of rocks. It was a young man of 17 or 18 years old. He saw Lu Ming at a glance. Haha, senior brother, there's another person here. The young man laughed and then looked at Lu Ming. You really know how to hide. But do you think it's useful to hide here? Hurry up and come out and help us explore the central area. Lu Ming frowned, interrupted the half-recovered true qi, and stood up. Kid, hurry up and come out. Don't dawdle. I don't have time to dawdle with you. As the young man spoke, he directly grabbed at Lu Ming's throat with his claw. Obviously, in his mind, he wanted to grab Lu Ming like a chick and throw him out. However, he was obviously disappointed. Not only was he disappointed, but he was also shocked. Because Lu Ming also reached out a hand and grabbed at him, and he was faster and more accurate than him. He grabbed the young man's wrist. The strong force penetrated the young man's wrist, and the excruciating pain made the young man cry out. "Ah, little bastard, how dare you hurt me? You're courting death." The young man slapped Lu Ming with his other hand. "Get lost." Lu Ming shouted coldly, and his true chi burst out. He grabbed the young man's wrist and swung it. The young man's arm directly made cracking sounds, and the bones in his arm broke into several pieces. He screamed, flew more than 10 meters away, and fell heavily to the ground. "Ah, little bastard, you're dead meat. How dare you hit me? Do you know who I am?" The young man struggled to get up, hugged his arms, and screamed at the top of his lungs. "Aren't you just a disciple of the Shifang sword sect? Is that a big deal?" Chapter 88. Since you know that I'm a disciple of the Shifang sword sect, kneel down and apologize. The young man shouted. What an idiot. Lu Ming was a little speechless. Are all the disciples of the Shifang sword sect like this? Since Lu Ming knows that I'm a disciple of the Shifang sword sect and still dares to attack, he's obviously not afraid of the Shifang sword sect. Yet, he still asked Lu Ming to kneel down and apologize. Isn't that an idiot? Lu Ming's body swayed and he got out of the pile of rocks. At this moment, a few figures rushed over. They were all young people. Further away, there were 5 young men who surrounded more than a dozen itinerant cultivators and ordinary people who were picking up blaze stones. Junior brother Zhao, what's going on? One of the people who rushed over asked. Senior brother, this little bastard actually dared to sneak an attack on me. You guys have to cripple him for me. The young man from before shouted. Brat, how dare you injure a disciple of my 10 Directions sword sect? Now, let me cripple your cultivation and then obediently help us explore the way inside. Perhaps you can still save your life. One of the fat disciples of the Shifang sword sect said. He looked at Lu Ming coldly with a condescending expression. Lu Ming touched his nose speechlessly. Are these the disciples of the Shifang sword sect? Why do they all look so condescending? The Shifang sword sect is indeed the largest sect in the Burning Sun Empire, but there's no need for everyone to look so condescending. Kid, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? The fat young man shouted coldly. You asked me to explore the way inside and captured so many ordinary people. What do you want? Lu Ming did not answer and instead asked curiously. Nonsense, is that something you can ask? Go and explore the way obediently, the fat young man said coldly. Then, he threw a punch at Lu Ming's dantian. The fat young man was a 7th level martial master and his punch was extremely powerful. If it hit, it would definitely break Lu Ming's cyclone and cripple his cultivation. This was the Shifang sword sect. They were extremely domineering and wanted to cripple someone's cultivation at the slightest disagreement. Shifang sword sect, haha. Since we're going to meet sooner or later, I'll collect some interest first. Lu Ming's eyes turned completely cold. Lu Yuntian was very likely to fall into the Shifang sword sect's hands. Lu Ming did not have a good impression of the Shifang sword sect. But now, boom! The flaming dragon fist was unleashed. Lu Ming's fist force was faster and more ruthless. The punch accurately landed on the fat youth's stomach. The fat youth's eyeballs instantly protruded out. Soon after, he let out a shrill scream. His fat body was like a rubber ball, flying far away. He flew for nearly 20 meters before falling to the ground. Then, he rolled a few times before coming to a stop. The fat youth screamed miserably. Lu Ming said indifferently, Boy, you're courting death. The remaining 2 young men roared and unsheathed their long swords. 2 sharp sword lights shot out toward Lu Ming. Both of them were in the late 7th level martial master realm. Astral fire spear technique moon seizing. With a flick of his hand, the fire-patterned spear appeared and swept out. In the air, a fiery red light flashed like a moon. Bang! Bang! The two young men of the Shifang sword sect were swept away by the spear without any resistance. They spat out mouthfuls of blood in the air and fell to the ground. They were no longer breathing. Their bones had been broken and their internal organs had been shattered by Lu Ming's spear. The fat young man and the previous young man were stunned. Their faces were pale and their bodies were trembling. Lu Ming looked at the young man with the broken hand. "No, don't kill me," the young man with the broken hand screamed in horror. However, Lu Ming was unmoved. He lifted his long spear. "Stop." At this time, the 5 disciples of the Shifang sword sect, who were surrounding the dozen stone pickers, rushed toward them. One of them roared and showed his cultivation of the peak 8th level martial master realm. "Ah!" The young man with the broken hand screamed in horror and ran toward the 5 disciples of the Shifang sword sect. But, whoosh! Lu Ming swung his spear and it shot out like lightning. It caught up with the young man with the broken hand in an instant and pierced his chest from the back, nailing him to the ground. "Die! Die! Little bastard, not only will you die, but your family and friends will also die." The disciple of the Shifang sword sect, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the martial master realm, roared furiously and rushed toward Lu Ming. "Let's see who dies first." Using the dragon snake steps, Lu Ming turned into a gust of wind and rushed toward the 5 disciples of the Shifang sword sect. When he passed by the young man with the broken hand, he pulled out the fire-patterned spear. The two sides were closing in quickly. Wild wave cut. The disciple of the Shifang sword sect, who was an 8th level martial master, roared. He held a huge sword that was as wide as a palm with both hands. The sword gleam slashed toward Lu Ming like a storm. Buzz. The fire-patterned spear shook and swept forward. Clang. The spear and the sword collided and sparks flew in all directions, making a huge boom. The disciple of the Shifang sword sect trembled and took a dozen steps back. Lu Ming's body only shook and swayed slightly. Kill. In the next moment, the other 4 disciples of the Shifang sword sect slashed at Lu Ming with their swords. Among the 5 sects of the Blazing Sun Empire, only the Shifang sword sect and the Mystic Essence sword sect were good at sword techniques. The sword techniques that the 2 sects were good at were somewhat different. The sword techniques of the Shifang sword sect leaned toward the hard and fierce side. They were very powerful. The 4 disciples of the Shifang sword sect, 2 8th level martial masters and 2 7th level martial masters, joined forces and swept toward Lu Ming like stormy waves. At the same time, they also used bloodline eruption, which was much stronger. However, they were facing Lu Ming, who had cultivated a low-grade profound level martial skill to the 2nd level of Lu Ming. Moon seizing. Lu Ming's eyes were bright. The genuine qi in his body completely erupted and he swept out with his spear. Boom, 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 boom. 4 consecutive explosions and 4 consecutive screams were heard. The 2 7th level martial masters of the Shifang sword sect were directly killed and flew far away. The 2 8th level martial masters were not much better. They flew more than 10 meters and fell heavily to the ground, coughing up blood. They were also seriously injured. 1 spear strike, 2 dead and 2 injured, which shocked the peak 8th level martial master of the Shifang sword sect. However, Lu Ming would not give him the slightest chance to breathe. He rushed forward a few steps and then jumped high, smashing down with the fire-patterned spear. Landslide. The long spear smashed down with a shrill whistling sound. The Shifang sword sect disciple's face was pale. He burst out with all the strength in his body and circulated the power of his bloodline to the extreme. He slashed up with his sword. Clang. The long spear smashed on the sword and the force whistled out, forming a gust of wind that swept in all directions. Boom. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,